How do we sort through our doubts to find what's true with a capital T and not believe what we hear or what we read from others who profess to know it all? Today is all about developing your inner contrarian to find a healthy balance in a world that's very imbalanced, especially after a spiritual injury where we're knocked off our center and we aren't even sure which way is up, but we definitely want to stand up right again. Who are we now and what should we believe in? This podcast is all about helping you with your spiritual growth so you can overcome obstacles and manifest your destiny, to crystallize and materialize any dream, basically to have success on life's journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. So let's get started. Hi there and welcome. My name is Remy, like Do Re Mi. I'm a best-selling author and creator of the Get Unstuck Revolution. I help extraordinary women just like you dissolve the obstacles in your path so you can bring success to you. Now let's get started with today's video. Okay, let me jump off the screen here and switch to my laptop. It's the hallmark of invalidation. Someone takes you down a notch by branding you unreasonable, illogical, or wrong. They can do this by ignoring your needs, refusing to believe you, pretending you don't exist, or by simply telling you, either outright or through their actions, that you don't matter. And when we suffer this kind of spiritual injury, there's a part of us that begins to believe what we're hearing. It may even trigger social anxiety. But there's another form of invalidation, of pretending you don't exist, and it's one of my favorite topics: ghosting, because then we're left in a vacuum, wondering what happened, and our ego is all too ready to fill in the blanks with wrong information. Our ego may also tell us that we're unreasonable, illogical, or that we're wrong. So today's episode is all about how to sort through our doubts to find what's true with a capital T and not believe what's been said, even from our own ego thinking, and not be too quick to believe what we may hear from other so called experts. Today is all about developing our inner contrarian to find a healthy balance in a world that's very imbalanced so we can find success in our journey. If you'd like to see success in full abundance along life's journey, and if you're wanting to tap into a greater knowingness and align with the higher consciousness of your infinite self instead of the lower ego thinking and negative thoughts that push success away, then this is for you. It's time to be unabashedly, unapologetically, happily untethered to ego thinking. It's time to align with the higher energies of our soul's path instead. Today's episode is for you if you wonder how to sort through doubts and confusion to find what's true for you. Is being a contrarian a good thing or a bad thing? And is it possible to be a healthy contrarian and not be seen as deviant or difficult? Yes, these episodes are about how to find your hidden power when you want to transform challenges into successes. I like to call it the audacity of alchemy. Because when we're feeling stuck, it's never the situation that has us stuck, it's our energy about it that's become stuck in anxiety, overwhelm, doubts, worries, frustrations, indecision, and even anger. And often this is because of a spiritual injury that we've experienced, some kind of hidden trauma. So it isn't the pain of the situation. It's the pain of not being connected into the natural energy of who we really are, of being connected to that magical part of us that's a creative vibrational being who can use positive energies to create what we want and bring it into physical manifestation. We can allow our manifestations to materialize and not get stuck in the negative vibrations that block them. These positive energies that we talk about so much are where we find the magic of alchemy, because our choice of frequency, our choice of those positive thoughts and emotions can change the course of our journey. So today we're talking about being a contrarian. How do we sort through our doubts and confusion to find what's true with a capital T and not believe what's been said, even from our own ego thinking, and not be too quick to believe what we may hear from other so-called experts? Today is all about developing our inner contrarian, in other words, independent thinking, to find a healthy balance in a world that's very imbalanced. So let's start with a basic concept here. If it's true for you, it's true. If it's true for you, it's true. What we hear from others, even the experts, is often based in their experience of the truth. Even our own ego thinking can be inaccurate. After all, it's trying to protect us, even if it's stirring up irrational fears. At some point, we may find that our hearts are all tangled up inside, and we just want to get to the bottom line so we can move forward. We want to get to our inner truth. So, not all experts are experts. They're only experts in their own experience of the truth. Even if you're a loyal listener to this podcast, don't believe everything I say because it may not be true for you. And on almost every episode, you'll hear me say that I'm here to inspire new thoughts and ideas, but do what works for you. I promise I won't be offended by your pushback. I had an operations manager one time who accused me of pushback. And I put up my stop sign hand to say, whoa, and asked him, how is it pushback if I have 100% clarity of what I want to create? I'm simply unapologetic about my vision, and I know what things are acceptable in my world. Can you relate? So, this is what I'd like you to consider for your world. What's true for you? In other words, there's what's right, and there's what's right and true for you. And this is the point from which you can build your vision and your dreams, even if your world has been shattered by spiritual injury. Let me say that again. There's what's right, and there's what's right and true for you. And this is the point from which you can build your vision and your dreams, even if your world has been shattered by spiritual injury. And for another example, I once had a guy who accused me of stomping all over his heart, but that was his filter. I simply had 100% clarity on my vision of what I was looking for, and I was unapologetic about that. I had clarity on my vision, and that clarity comes when we understand this concept of what's true for you. You can build your vision when you know what's true for you. All right, then. It's popular these days to talk about shadow work. The idea of shadow work, which was originally developed by Carl Jung, is that we must first understand our trauma in order that we may transform it. We want to transform self destruction into creative expression. It's a methodology for integrating our dark side or the hidden parts of ourselves that we can't see. Now, as a contrarian, I'm going to ask, who says that I have a dark side? Why would anybody put that label on me? Or who are you to tell me that I have a shadow side when you don't even know what work I've done on myself over the many years I've been on this planet? Or who are you to tell a light worker that I have a dark side? This is an example. This is the dialogue of a contrarian. Make sense? As a contrarian, we're questioning and challenging labels and advice from others. Because I can say that as a light worker, the challenge for me has not been facing my darkness. I've been asked to turn and face the light. And if you're going through an ascension, you know exactly what I mean. Sometimes to turn and face our light, well, it can burn. And this is widely reported among so many light workers. It can burn when we face the light because the frequency is so high and we may not yet be used to it. But if someone is going through an ascension and they don't even know what ascension means, they might end up listening to some expert who's telling them to face their darkness. See what I mean? It's the wrong expertise and it's the wrong advice. And this is why I say that it can be healthy to be a contrarian if we're looking for our truth or what's true for us. It's kind of like the metaphor, and I love this metaphor, of waiting for your feet to burst into flames. I grew up in Texas, and I heard Dr. Phil talking about this one day. He's also from Texas, that when you grow up there, there's asphalt everywhere, and it gets freaking hot. It can be 100 degrees outside in the summer, and that asphalt will be 140 degrees. And when you step on it barefoot, ouchie, wah, you had better believe you'll hotfoot it quickly and get off the scorching asphalt. You won't stand there and wait for your feet to burst into flames. Now, I'm taking this a little out of context because Dr. Phil was talking about how sometimes we need to require more of ourselves. In other words, if we find ourselves in a situation that burns, we don't stand there and wait for our feet to burst into flames. We want to require ourselves to step up or to step out of our situation. Don't take someone else's word about where you're supposed to be in life. That's the point that I want to make. But I'm using his metaphor to say that sometimes an expert will tell you one thing and it completely doesn't fit, like the person who tells us to do shadow work when we actually need to turn and face the light, not our shadow. By not knowing our own truth with a capital T, we could be influenced to stand in the middle of the asphalt waiting for our feet to burst into flames. That would be really bad advice. And this is why it's okay to find our inner contrarian and question what a so called expert says, even if it's the ego voice inside our own head. Let's not just stand there and wait for our feet to burst into flames. Let's turn to our inner contrarian to find what's true for us. Okay, just to be sure we're on the same page, let me put on the screen here a definition of contrarian. This is a person who opposes or rejects popular opinion or goes against current practice. So, this is not someone who's difficult just for the sake of being difficult. Contrarians may be seen as bold or spirited. They may be seen as eccentric or unconventional. Maybe they're simply thought leaders. But we often think of a contrarian as someone who refuses to conform just because the herd of sheep is moving in one particular direction. We've seen this throughout history, even in our current times, right? Along the way, we've had some pretty famous people: Plato, Napoleon, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, who, because they were contrary thought leaders, actually influenced history and changed our philosophies. They changed humanity in their own special way simply because they were contrary. They were thought leaders. Why are they able to resist pressures to conform? Why are they able to resist pressures to conform? Well, psychologists and historians and those who study society have different answers on this. Some believe that contrarians are devious and perverse. Others believe they're individualists and mavericks, that they're healthy thinkers who move mankind forward. So I want to be clear that I'm not trying to label you or me or anyone else as a contrarian, good or bad. I'm simply saying that if we have a contrarian within, who questions what's right for us, let's give it a voice, because this inner contrarian might have access to our truth so we can move forward the same way history's contrarians have moved mankind forward. Because remember, what's true for you is true. And sometimes after a spiritual injury or any kind of invalidation, we can lose track of this, that what's true for you is true. Okay, let's talk about conformity. Conformity is designed to change our beliefs and our behaviors. Conformity is designed to change our beliefs and our behaviors. Look at anyone who's been through domestic violence and the control and rage underneath that as one spouse demands conformity. Or look at dogmatic religions or cults that also have control underneath their practices as they demand conformity. Even thinking about the elephant who is chained to a chair, and over time, the elephant's belief is that they don't have freedom to roam. So, conformity by design is there to change our beliefs. This also happens with group pressures or peer pressure where we become obedient, or maybe we want to keep the peace and not rock the boat. We don't want to face rejection or humiliation, or there's something that we don't want to lose. Maybe it's popularity, or maybe a sense of security that we don't want to lose. And so we tend to follow the leader being the most confident or sometimes just the loudest. As they say, he who knows the most knows it the loudest. So, when we find ourselves ready to step away from this conformity, ready to step away from what we thought was right, and we're ready to access our inner contrarian, it's often because we want to discover what's right for us. We want a new perspective. What is our truth with a capital T? How do we access the contrarian within in a healthy way, though? Well, I have three ways. If we want to access the contrarian within, one way we can do this is to develop independent thinking skills. Ignore social pressures or peer pressure or negative naysayers. Ignore those who want us to conform. Don't worry about what others think. Be brave enough to be wrong. After all, we're exploring our independence here, but also be brave enough to find the positive aspects of our personal truth. So, this is the first way to access the contrarian within in a healthy way, and that is to develop independent thinking skills. And so, here comes number two, and that is to become an observer. Detach from influencers enough that you can still watch and notice and think independently without being part of the situation, especially if the situation has a negative influence. Because sometimes other people stir up our emotions and our triggers. They cloud our judgment as to what's true or right for us as an individual. And as we're developing our independent thinking skills, we want a certain amount of rational scrutiny, of course, but we don't want to buy in to any negative side. So, this is the second way to access the contrarian within in a healthy way, and that is to become an observer and detach from influences. And now, here's the third way, and that is to write down possible decisions before actually making them. And we might even, when we do that, ask the exact opposite or the contrary decision. We might look at all the possible decisions and also look at the opposite or contrary to what a possible decision might be. Look at both sides of the coin. Not only will this help to brainstorm possible outcomes, but it will also give your inner contrarian a voice toward a positive outcome. So, this is the third way to access the contrarian within in a healthy way is to brainstorm decisions before making them. All right. So, those were three tips to help sort through doubts or confusions and find what's true with a capital T and not believe what we hear or what we read from others who profess to know it all, especially not from our ego, who always professes to know it all. Independent thinking can help us to find a healthy balance in a world that's very imbalanced, especially after a spiritual injury where we're knocked off our center and we aren't even sure which way is up, but we definitely want to stand upright again in our pursuit of positive outcomes. Who are we now, and what should we believe in? This is where our inner contrarian can help us to grow and expand into who we are at our deepest and our brightest levels. As we empower ourselves toward self expression and who we are at our core without the negative thoughts and emotions that can drain us, we're choosing a higher frequency, higher and better thoughts because our choice of frequency, our choice of more positive emotions changes the course of our journey. So, reflecting back on everything we covered today, how can you apply what you've learned? Do you tend to believe everything you read or hear from an expert? Or do you tend to challenge things quite naturally? And is there a place in life right now that could use a little independent thinking? Well, I hope this helps you as you're using the powers of alchemy to transform challenges and obstacles into positive new successes. This podcast is all about helping you have success on your spiritual growth journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. If you still can't get your head around what's got you stuck, you can tell me about it. You can send me a question to questions at unlockyourhiddenpower.com. Or you may not know that you can schedule a one-on-one session with your own personal unstuckologist, that's me, by visiting instantbreakthroughsession.com. This private session is designed to help you tap into your greatest resource, that's you, and together we can make quite a team toward calling in the transformational powers of alchemy. In our time together, we'll uncover your single biggest stuck point, that one that you might not be able to see. We'll also go over the most genius way to create clarity so you can just move forward while one obstacle after another is obliterated. And we'll create a strategy to get you moving in a really good direction, the one that's aligned with your life's purpose. If this sounds like a match made in heaven, you can hop on over to instantbreakthroughsession.com right now and book the time slot that works best for you. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I'm wishing you a life filled with all the alchemy you need to bring success to you. Feel free to share this video with anyone you know who's feeling stuck, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.